Okay, so as I said, my name is Paul. I'm Chief Product Officer at Flowable. Micha is the CTO at Flowable. And we're going to show you how we're using interactions with business processes and trying to make them more personal and more interactive. Flowable is actually, as announced today, a merger of 3 different organizations. There's a Flowable open source project, there's a DorisWare, a case management product company, and also Micha commerce services company. We've merged today, and we're now a 300 people organization with offices, about 12 offices around the world. We have 3 main products. Flowable Core is the open source product. We just released the latest version of that. We feel, well, it's the fastest one we've ever produced, so it's pretty good. There's Flowable Platform. It builds on that to give you a case management platform. And then there's Engage, which we're going to talk about today, which is our customers are pushing us really towards customer engagement. In the financial space, this is something like a relationship manager who is working with a high wealth individual. And they're talking with them, they're working with them, bringing in expert advisors. And the customer wants to talk to the advisor through the relationship manager through chat, whether that's WeChat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and interact with the person in the bank, but also interact with the banking systems behind that. Of course, the bank wants to use all the standard models and everything that they've used before for compliance reasons, for best practice. So whether that's BPMN, CMMN, DMN, all of those things they want to bring into this new communication channel that's opening up there. So what does that mean? We're using chatbots to augment a human-to-human conversation. This isn't creating chatbots, it's augmenting people conversations. And you can define the behavior of a chatbot through BPM. And that defines, the models define how a chat is going to happen, the chatbot is going to behave. And that could be things like a structured questionnaire. Instead of a task inbox with forms for someone to fill in or emails, this is happening within the chat. A form and form flow is happening. And because it's within chat, then you can have the collaborative communication of building around that. But you've also got the benefits of all the other things that a BPM system gives you, like timed action. So I want to schedule a formal portfolio review in 3 months' time. This is all stuff that can be introduced into the chat very naturally. Now, one of the things we've found is that thinking of conversation as a case is really powerful. CMMN, for all its evils, we've seen as a really powerful, a natural way to express what are the things that are appropriate in a conversation at a particular point in time. And then you can start, of course, the key thing here is about process. So, how do we actually bring the formal structured part of a conversation or part of a process into the conversation? So auto-starting processes or on-demand processes or auto-creation of tasks at particular points in time in a conversation. And the other thing is conversations are non-linear. People they digress. And this is where one of the things we showed last year, this dynamic injection of processes, works really well within a conversation. So I'm already doing something, somebody that takes me off on a different path, and I can now deal with that in a creative way. No talk today is complete without reference to blockchain or AI. We're no different. We can see that there's opportunities to learn from the structured conversations that are happening and to be able to make suggestions about what you should be able to do next or even change the processes that are going on. And we see 3 different levels of bringing intelligence into a process. The first one is just let the user intelligence be brought in itself. Processes can be very dumb, and you want to allow a user to change a process to deal with a particular unusual situation. The next level is like the super clippy. It's aware of stuff that's going on and aware that it can suggest things and help you, but it is very much by design, that the user is in control of this adaptive behavior. The next level is the one that we've all been talking about, which is machine learning. So having sort of machine learning algorithms watching the data that's flowing through within a conversation and then inferring things that perhaps you want to be able to do from that. So making suggestions or even going and changing the process for you because it's decided that it's reached a level of confidence that it can do that. So that all sounds wonderful. So we're going to show you this in action. And what we're going to show you is something that is in use today at a number of global banks. It is a real scenario. We've simplified it a bit. And what that scenario is an example of a high wealth client of a bank talking to their relationship manager, and they're chatting about keeping things up to date. But it turns out in the chat that they need to actually complete a questionnaire. For the demo, we're not going to be using mobile app. Most of the time it is they're on WeChat or whatever doing this. We're actually going to go through the web. We're going to show you how you can blend the structured process into this unstructured chat. And of course, this is a BPMN conference, so it's all defined with BPMN. And then as the final sort of juicy bit at the end, what we're going to do is introduce some AI, and what we're going to do is dynamically replace a user decision task with a decision table that's been generated from the machine learning. So at this point, I say, that all sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Do you believe we can do it? And I pass over to Micha and say, good luck.
All right.
It's going to saw you in half as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see about that. All right, so as Paul mentioned, what I'm going to show today is a real-world use case. We simplified it in several ways. First of all, the process is simplified in a sense that we skipped a lot of compliance tasks that we will see in the process. And we also simplified the data that we use for machine learning. We reduced it basically to fit to the example that we're showing today. But the data is real-world data. All right, so what I'm going to do here first, I'm logging in as Shane Bowen. Shane Bowen is a client advisor. So the top left window, Shane Bowen, he's a client advisor working in a private bank with high wealth clients. So he has a couple of clients that he's talking to, no matter what type of channel they use. In this window, I'm going to log in as Annie Austin. She is a high wealth client connected and working with Shane to help her deal with her business requests. Now, we have customers specifically in Asia that told us we cannot reach our customers on email anymore. We can send them email, but we don't get response. So what they use specifically in private banking, clients tell the bank what means they want to use or what channels they want to use to get in contact with the bank. In our case, that's in Asia, it's most likely WeChat. In Europe, it's more like WhatsApp. Facebook, not that much anymore. And of course, we have to provide integrations with those. Today, I'm going to use the web-based client. We also have native mobile clients. We have integration with WeChat, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook as well. Now, assume there's an ongoing conversation. You can use that channel to talk to your client advisor, say, hey, what's the next big thing I should invest into, and so on. But today, besides sharing a document I want to go through with my client, let's say my client, Annie, tells Shane something like, Shane, she actually moved to a new place. No. I could then start chatting and say, hey, should I now start the address change process? Now, address change process sounds really simple, right? But in a financial institution, it's actually not. Specifically, if you move from one country to another, it might kick off a lot of compliance issues, like showing into the client's profile, seeing if that country, you're even allowed to do business or to have clients in that country. What is the policy of your bank? What is the regulation, and so on. So that's what I made it a little bit more simpler today. Now, here's, that's chat. It's from a technical scalability point of view pretty interesting, but not from a functional point of view. But now, let's see what my digital assistant can help me with when I want to kick off that case. So I can use to talk to my digital assistant, and I want to start a new case. Now, the chatbot is context aware. So the digital assistant already knows that I'm talking to one of my clients. She can actually look up the profile of the client, like current address, for instance, that we'll see later, and so on. But can also provide me a list of cases that might make sense in my current context. So I'm going to choose the address change case. And then the digital assistant will actually start a new case for me. Now we can go there. We created it as a new sub-conversation to basically focus on that address change in my conversation and leave the ongoing chit-chat that I have with my client beside, but it's kind of linked.
And that can be for reasons that you might want to be having a conversation and introduce an expert advisor, and so you need to have some privacy around that. So actually creating a new conversation context can be very important.
True, yeah. All right, now the digital assistant not only started a case, but also got me some interesting information like the current address of my client, which was picked up by the core banking system or a CRM, whatever. And it shows me a form that I can enter some structured data. Now, there's two ways I can do that. I could directly, digital assistant, like, let's talk to the client directly. But high-wealth clients, they're really demanding, so they don't want to do stuff themselves. They lay down everything to their client advisor. So in our case, digital assistant asks me as a client advisor, hey, please fill in the new address of Annie. And by the way, the digital assistant, I don't know if you can see it back down here, also sent that same case or that same new conversation backed by a case to my client, Annie. And also, hey, that's what we got in our system. You currently live in Germany, in Frankfurt, actually. Now, the cool thing is, I have both ways, like structured, the process engine running in the background, but also my unstructured chat I can use. So I can say, hey, Annie, what is that new? What is the new address? Which you can tell me.
Of course, we'll get a speech interface to this next year, won't we?
Yeah, so it will be faster. Well, I could use my...
No.
Okay. Right next to KFC, by the way. All right, so I got to add that. So now we're going into an interesting use case because a move from Germany to Russia is probably leading to some questions, right? Oh, I need the zip code. Something like that. Could put that in. Now I have all the information gathered in my structured form, and I can continue the process. Now the digital assistant repeats some information like current address, new address, and I need to confirm or either say, oh no, I did a mistake, I want to correct it. Now in my case, I say confirm. Now we see the digital assistant also sent a task back to the client confirming my new address. At least clicking a button should be okay, even for high net clients, right?
And is necessary for compliance reasons as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because a client advisor was typing in the information receiving by the client, but at the end of the day, the client needs to confirm that's my new address. To make it a bit more simpler, we also included it in Google Maps. And yeah, it is next to KFC, by the way. So I say, yes, that I can confirm that I moved there. Now we see the digital assistant replies back, okay, for now, it looks like I have all the data, but maybe I will come back in that conversation to ask for more, like residency, papers of residency, tax regulations, stuff like that. However, what was reported back to the client advisor was something different. Like Russia is actually flagged as a sensitive country, meaning it's not that easy to just move from Germany to Russia without having any compliance issues. Now, we will add a compliance officer to the conversation now. We need some confirmation there, or maybe there are some more questions raised during that step. In order to make it a bit more interesting, we could actually, what Paul mentioned, we could drive a topic out of that, adding a compliance team or a compliance officer to the conversation and chat around the questions that we have. Or we are going here. I'm going to log in as Tim Lee. He's a compliance officer working at that bank. But he doesn't like he's not staying too much in conversations or in chats, but he rather likes to work in a more structured way with a task inbox and so on. So he got a task to check that client history of Annie Austin moving to Russia. So we see all the relevant information from a compliance point of view, like assets under management, liabilities, lost capacity, free assets, stuff like that. That is actually relevant to make a decision around whether we can actually keep that client. Now let's make that window a bit smaller so we can see what happens when I complete the task. So I now have to decide whether that's okay. I'm going to approve to keep Annie as a client and to make that move okay, to be okay. Now if I complete the task, as you can see a bit below, we basically finish the process. Again, that's a very simplified version, saying we can actually keep Annie as a customer, first of all, because it's still compliant to our regulation, and obviously we change the address back in the system. All right, now, the interesting part is, what is the magic behind running behind the scenes? Well, it's not really magic. I'm logging in as an administrator. So I'm going to my design time environment. Let me check the address change app. It's a normal BPM app where we have case models, we have forms, and we also have a process. So let's look into the process, which is the address change process that we just run in that conversational aspects is a regular BPMN process. So we see lanes like the client, with the client advisor, compliance officer. We see user tasks, we see service tasks, everything you can do with the BPM system. Now the interesting part is this one. As soon as we flag, or we see the target country is actually flagged as a sensitive one, we basically need to involve a compliance officer to the process to check the client history, some more data, probably even looking into assets, whether they can be kept or need to be sold, stuff like that. Now, the next part of the demo is about machine learning. So we had that user task collected some information from the core banking system that I need as a compliance officer to make the approval. But what we've done in the background, we basically loaded all that data, basically the input data that was needed for the approval task into Spark and did machine learning to see what would be the suggestion from the machine learning for the approval. Now what we saw in the different levels before, we could have done it in level 2, saying, hey, machine learning would now approve or would decline for this and this reasons. Now we are going to be bold and say we're completely removing the manual task and exchanging it with a DMN-based task, a rule task. Now the interesting part is machine learning creates some decision trees, which might be pretty tricky to read and understand. So we heard that yesterday as well in several talks around whether that just be a kind of a black box doing some magic. Now what we did is we took that decision tree that we got from machine learning and we basically created a DMN table out of it so it's human readable. So I'm going to look at it, what we've learned so far. So before running the demo, I also loaded something like 200,000 cases into machine learning, so we could get a sophisticated machine learned decision tree out of it. And I filtered it by Russia only, so we only have past data, where people moved to Russia to make it a bit more easier on it. So I'm going to use that machine learned data and change the process, basically applying it to the process model. So going back to my app, I actually have an improved version of my process that was just created by analytical microservice of Flowable. And as you can see, my user task has been exchanged with a daemon-backed decision task. And I can even look into the table. It's always a bit tricky because it's always a bit different depending on the data. Now we see, as I said, I filtered it, the 200,000 cases for only where the new country is Russia. So we see the daemon table being learned by the Spark machine learning task that we run. Now, let's see what happens if we rerun that case again. So I'm going to start the very same address change case. In there. Of course, I'm not doing all the chit-chat again. Also, Annie got that one. This time we go to red square.
I'm a bit worried, the zip code to the red square. But
Well, might have an impact on compliance, right? So I'm going to confirm. It's going to be sent to Annie again to confirm. Now, remember the last time that we went in here, we had to do the specific approval step by a compliance officer. Now this time, it was exchanged in the process by a daemon task. So I would expect now that we don't have that extra step, but if we run it, as you can see, it was decided by the machine learned decision table that it's okay for Annie with her specific assets and everything and history to move to Russia. And so we could save a lot of time by just letting the machine learned data take over the job.
And also the compliance officer is now doing something far more valuable to the bank.
Absolutely. So we're not replacing people. He can do something which is more, fun, compliance. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So to finalize, maybe as a client advisor, and I know Annie moved to a new location, maybe I want to send her a welcome card tomorrow. So I can also use something which is natural language processing. So I can say, let's make this here. I can talk to my digital assistant and say, remind me tomorrow morning at 9 to card to Annie. Now I got a reminder. I can also do something like, show me all my reminders. I currently only have one. To see what really happens if a reminder kicks off, let's do something like remind me and Annie in 10 seconds to finish the demo. Now waiting for 10 seconds is way more time than you had on your slides, right? Now we see when the assistant will then remind me here, you asked me to remind you to finish the demo. It should also be sent to Annie. Yeah? Asked me to remind you to finish the demo. So basically I can use not only process or case-backed digital assistants or chatbot, I can also use some really useful stuff, even including natural language processing to help me do my job. It's really assistant, right? So I can do stuff like show me the last 10 transactions of my client, or give me an overview of the current portfolio or the value of the current portfolio of today. We even have one customer that has fully integrated that with their desk to actually not only do all the client requests, but also do stock exchange directly out of a conversation. And if necessary, you can include people, you can even include your client to talk to, and it's all backed by a case or a process. And even more important, it's all audited, right? So one of the biggest issues we had in customers or banks, specifically in Asia, was all my chats that happen in WeChat and in WeChat only, they're not audited, which is a necessary point to be compliant. So when we do data integration, the client advisor always uses the same conversation center to actually talk, no matter what connection or what channel that the client is onto, and it's all audited. It's all compliant to the regulations. All right.
Thank you very much.
I think we still have a couple of minutes left.
We do. We have 8 minutes until the break. So before Neil goes, I just have to say that this is really great.
Thank you.
As part of the process, Bruce and I vet the presentations, and we go through a
you
dry
let
run.
us in?
And I didn't see this one. There's a handful that I didn't see, and there's a handful that Bruce didn't see, that we didn't see together. So Bruce saw this. I didn't. Clearly, very apropos for what I just talked about this morning, and squelches a lot of the criticism that I had about the lack of compliance in using machine learning in lieu of defined decisions. So
I think that was one of the things that, for us, AI is nice. I mean, I've got a background in AI, but it's a black box. And it's the idea, it's great for a demo to say suddenly the black box is going to do some magic and stuff happens, and it looks like a really exciting demo. But the reality is someone needs to be able to look into that black box and understand what's going on often. And so we've been exploring this idea of using machine learning to actually generate decision tables. And as Micha showed you, we can do things where we can inject a decision table into an active dynamic process that's running as well if we want. Or in this case, the step where Micha actually pressed the button, that was really a person that could be reviewing the decision table, saying, yes, I'm going to do some post-editing on that decision table, but now that's a set of rules that I can actually sign off on, and that can be then integrated in, and that's a new version of the process which can then become deployed and used throughout. So for us, it's that yes, you can go completely black box if you want. You just need to plug in to whatever machine learning thing. But I think the interesting thing for us is how you take machine learned stuff and bring it into something that is formalized, like BPMN, like CMMN, like DMN, and then be able to have humans inspect it, adapt it, refine it, and deploy it. And that's for us a really important aspect to what we're doing.
So you said this is your product is open source. Is this piece being used open source?
It's open source if you pay us lots of money. No, so the core engines, it's using the Flowable core engines, the CMMN, the DMN, and the BPMN engines behind it. But all the other layering is not open source, I'm afraid.
It's what we call commercial open source. So
if you pay us lots of money, we'll show you the
code
code and you can play with it.
Makes sense.
Mm.
So the question I had was, you talked at the beginning about how you could use CMMN as a container for a conversation, way to structure a conversation, and then you showed a BPMN diagram. I was wondering, do you have anything that you could show us which is something similar, or which is a CMMN backed conversation? Is there something you have already?
Well, let me see if I find an interesting one.
So for sometimes what you can do, because with the CMMN you can have processes, auto-starting process, but you can also have tasks or processes that are available. So you can define those, and effectively that is the list of what's available to you. And then if you think of the stages within CMMN, that you could have different processes. So if you want to take something through a case through a set of stages, you could have different processes that could be, the right context to use. So that's the model behind it.
Yeah, I understand it's a stretch.
Yep.
But no, it's very, very interesting.
No, it seems that current setup, I don't have
Yep.
one.
Good cheeky question.
That's okay.
Well, we also know that, not everyone in this room likes CMMN, so, Any other questions?
Just coming back to the CMN thing, one thing that we have been driven by CMN was basically when you have a case-backed conversation that we show actions available according to current stage, available actions, and so on. That was one of the integration points with it backed by CMN, which is really cool because and you can send an event to a conversation. It triggers something in the case engine, which might have an effect of available actions or triggering the process any further. That's the beautiful integration point, basically.
It's a much more natural way to
Absolutely.
start a conversation than saying,
Yeah.
okay, you have to do things in this way, and that's,
Yep.
that's
Exactly.
complete.
And it's not like in following up, like you have to do this and this and this. It's more like, hey, that's what currently is available. And you cannot move forward because you have at least done those 3 items, but I don't care which one you do first. Right? Yeah.
Okay, again, great stuff.
Thanks.
Okay.